Hi, this is Anna Horford, and you're listening to Horford Happy Hour. All right, thanks for joining me on another episode of Horford Happy Hour. This week, I am sitting down with a professional astrologer, and her name is Carole Wray. And Carole is going to be giving us some insight into astrology and all that it entails. And this week's wine is called 14 Hands Cabernet, and it is a red blend, and it's really good. It comes in a really pretty bottle that has a horse on it, and this has actually been one of my go-to reds for a while, and so yeah, it's really good. So I definitely recommend it. Go out and try it, and all right, let's get into it. So I know people often have questions about astrology and the practice and everything that kind of goes into it. And so I kind of want to read the definition that I found just to see if that's something that you can relate to. Okay, so an astrologer by definition is a person who uses astrology to tell others about their character or to predict the future. So would you say that you agree with that definition?
I would say I agree with it, but predicting the future is kind of an iffy thing because everybody's really different, and they, you kind of have to, as an astrologer, tap into where that person's at to accurately predict things for them.
So basically, everyone is their own unique situation.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I was reading a little bit about astrology, and there's some really cool history behind it. And I read, according to the American Federation of Astrologers, is that something you're familiar with?
I am familiar with them.
Okay. That they said the Babylonians are generally credited with the birth of astrology, and their astrological charts enabled them to predict the recurrence of seasons and certain celestial events. So in the beginning and for more than 2,000 years, astrology and astronomy were the same science. So I think that's very interesting because I feel like those lines kind of get blurred for people sometimes.
Right.
So is there a major difference between the two?
Between astrology and astronomy? I don't think there was in the beginning. I think there is now. Astronomy has taken a more scientific move, and astrology is really, I think it's more humanistic than scientific.
Okay, yeah.
And depending on where you're born, like if you're an Indian astrologer, they're a lot more detail-oriented and fatalistically oriented.
Okay.
And American astrologers are not like that. Most of them that I know are like, your future could go into all these different probable paths, and where do you want to take it? So we try to give you the power to determine your future.
Okay, so it's not necessarily the same all across the board then, astrology in general. So people practice it differently?
They practice it differently.
Okay.
I mean, astrology is different because we're all so different.
Right.
It's like I'm not saying this right. I'm trying to think of how I want to put it. Everybody has a different signature. Everybody's going to do something different with that. And what I don't want to do as an astrologer is to put someone in a corner thinking that's the only options that they have.
Okay.
Because I believe that humanity is way more than that. And each individual is way more than that.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that I had read was, while the earliest astrology was used to bring a sense of order out of apparent chaos, it was soon utilized to predict weather patterns, primarily for agricultural purposes. It was eventually broadened to include forecasts of natural disasters and war and other events in the course of human affairs. Amassing successes in these fields, it was a natural progression for astrology to be used as counsel for kings and emperors and in time for all of us. So that's really, I think, quite interesting. And is that something that, as an astrologer, you've gone back and studied and have?
Somewhat. I haven't read all the history of
Mhm.
astrology, but astrologers really came out of the priest caste, and they did always associate themselves with the kings and whatever the ruling class was. But as it got more prevalent and more people learned it, it was adapted more for people in general instead of just kings. Like, first it was just kings that had astrologers,
Mhm.
then it was the aristocratic families that had to have their own astrologers, and eventually that started trickling down when we got into an age, really the age of science, when they kicked astrology out and said it can't possibly have any.
Yeah. So do you feel like anyone could practice astrology, or do you feel like more people are inclined or more natural to, kind of follow that path?
I think even in astrology, we have a lot of different kinds of astrologers. We
Okay.
have the more scientific astrologers that will set up case history stuff and study it and give us their information. I am a person astrologer, so I'm the one that sits down with the people. So the requirement for that, to me, is that you have to like people. And if you don't like people, you don't want to be an astrologer. Or you want to be a scientific astrologer or a mundane astrologer, which is the study of nations.
Okay.
And I find that I like to do all of them. I think they're all fun.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. So, could you explain in your own words what you do as an astrologer? If you were just to give just a general, explanation.
Well, we set up a chart based on the date of birth, the time of birth, and where, the location. So if you were born in Lansing, we would do it from Lansing, Michigan. Then that gives us your individual signature. It's as if when you were born, that in that moment of time you took on the energies of the heavens,
Mm-hmm.
and that signature becomes uniquely yours, and that's what we go from. So we do a natal chart and look at that, and I would talk to you about your characteristics, like your Capricorn, what are the general characteristics of a Capricorn. And Capricorns are just ambitious people. They love to set goals and meet them.
Mm-hmm.
That's fun. Meeting the goal is kind of like, okay, met that, gotta get a new goal.
Mm-hmm.
So we're builders, and we keep building, and we're very patient about it. That's what Capricorns are. But then I get a lot more specific, like where were the planets on the day you were born?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? How does that affect your emotional life, your love life, your career, your children, your marriages? I mean, so we do get into all of that because that's what's most important to people.
Right. Yeah.
They want to know.
Absolutely.
And then we would look at what's going on today in the heavens and how that affects their charts. And you see cycles that will come and go into people's lives. And we talk about that.
Okay. So, do you feel like there is a specific tie between, because I know you're mentioning the heavens, between religion at all in astrology, or is it more of just believing in a higher power of the universe?
I don't even think you have to believe in a higher power to do astrology. I mean, we literally are looking at the planets and how they affect us.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of books out there you can read on that. It's really kind of a magnetic gravity kind of pull with the planets on us. Mm-hmm. And how that affects us. I think you could be a Muslim. I think you could be a Christian. I think you could be an atheist. And I think you would be fine with astrology. There's no requirement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I happen to be really spiritual, so I believe there's some spiritual background in all of it.
Okay, so with these charts of, like you said, the planets and things like that, are those charts that are readily available, or something that you piece together, or how does that work?
I have an astrology program. It'll whip out your chart in a minute.
Okay, so that helps, right?
And I usually have my computer with me, so wherever I go, I can bring up a chart and look at it and see what's going on.
Okay, yeah, that's fascinating. And so who are your most common clients? Or is it kind of across the board, or?
I would say that it's really across the board. I don't, like if I got into professions, people that tend to come toward astrology, I would say it was psychologists, lawyers, strangely enough. But then I was in the legal field, so I think I understand that better, and that might be why I track that.
Mm-hmm.
But attorneys have a really good mind, and they can kind of put the stuff together on their own, and they're good at it.
Yeah.
So those are the two professions I see that are most common, but oh my gosh, I've gotten mothers to doctors to, just a bunch of different things, and I'm not.
Yeah, so there's not, there's no one really excluded.
Right.
Okay.
Gotcha. I mean, I've had people sneak in the back door to come see me.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want anybody to see they saw an astrologer, which I think's hilarious.
Yeah, why do you think that is?
Because they're well known in their field, and they don't want someone thinking they went to see an astrologer. They don't want that reputation.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like Reagan had an astrologer.
Okay.
They don't want you to know that because it makes you look hokey.
All right. So
because astrology has that reputation of being hokey.
Yeah. So would you say that's the major stereotype of astrology?
Yeah. Mainly what people will say about astrology is they'll go, "Oh, I don't believe in that." And I'll go, "Well, why not?" Well, I just don't. They don't really have a reason for not believing in it. Mm-hmm. It's just that somebody said, "Oh, yeah, that's a bunch of crap." They accept that. That seems to be the medium that people go to. But if you're an astrologer, you've always been on the edge. And so we think it's funny because it has nothing to do with anything, really.
Right. So
it's silly.
So I feel like a lot of people don't realize how much science, even throughout history, has kind of tied into astrology.
Absolutely.
So it's not just like you guys are pulling this out of nowhere. It really does come down
we
to...
literally look at where the planets are today.
Mm-hmm.
We have books that tell us where everything was at.
Yeah, yeah.
So that part of it is very scientific. I think that to be good at an astrologer, you need to be both on a scientific level and an intuitive level.
I'd just like to take a minute to talk to you guys about Beachbody On Demand. Beachbody On Demand is an easy-to-use streaming service that gives you instant access to a wide variety of super effective workouts that you can do from the comfort of your living room 24/7. They have amazing trainers, programs, you can work out on your schedule, you have access anytime, anywhere, and it's also a really great deal. So a program that I've really enjoyed is called the 21 Day Fix. And I started using it a few weeks ago. I had completed it and it was a fantastic challenge. It was something that really worked every part of my body and I really, really loved it and I highly recommend it. So I want to challenge you guys to start a program with me. One that I really like to do is the 3-week yoga retreat. So if there's anyone who really wants to, get into yoga, who's very new to it, I'd love to hear about your experience. So let me know how you're doing and I'll follow up with you guys as well. I really want you guys to try this service because it's something that is easy to stick with. It's easy to hold yourself accountable and, really push yourself to reach your goals. So right now, my listeners can get a special free trial membership when you text HHH to 303030, which is 303030. And you will get full access to this entire platform for free. All the workouts, the nutrition information, and support totally free. Just text HHH to 303030. Okay. And so as far as astrology goes, 2 things that kind of play into that, correct me if I'm wrong, are the zodiac and horoscopes. Is that Is that
Well,
accurate?
yeah, the horoscopes are the charts that we would run that I talked about
Okay.
in a natal chart. We need the date, time, and location because that's very specific and that's very mathematical.
Okay.
So it was horoscopes and the zodiac. Yeah, the zodiac is everything.
Mm-hmm.
It surrounds our world. It's the placement of the planets that we're looking at.
And I just wanted to read just a quick piece again from the American Federation of Astrologers, just to explain a little bit more about the zodiac. The zodiac, which is derived from the Greek word meaning circle of animals, is believed to have developed in ancient Egypt and later adopted by the Babylonians. Early astrologers knew it took 12 lunar cycles for the sun to return to its original position. They then identified 12 constellations that they observed were linked to the progression of the seasons and assigned them names of certain animals and persons. So is that kind of accurate for you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the signs of the zodiac are subdivided into 4 groups. So you have your fire signs, water signs, air signs, and earth signs.
Right.
So could you explain those a little bit?
Well, the fire signs are real energetic, high energy people. They're the bombastic ones at a party. And that's Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's an outgoing fiery quality to them that they just embody.
Okay.
You know, like Earth is down to earth, pragmatic. They're the ones that stock the cupboards, make sure you have a house to live in and food to eat.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's a down to earth kind of thing. Water signs are really emotional. They're very feeling, and that's they translate everything through the feeling realm.
Okay.
And that would be Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. And then we have the air signs that are very mental, you know, and they're all about thinking, new ideas, progressive concepts. They're all about the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius.
Okay.
So
do you feel like when you see, you know, you pick up a magazine or something and you see, you know, signs that are compatible for you, how much can we actually go off of that? How much does astrology actually impact our everyday lives, like who we date, what we like, and what we do?
Oh, I think a lot.
Okay.
You know, like there's the general concepts are like you and I are both Capricorns. So our best signs would be other earth signs or water signs. We tend to be more compatible with them.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, you can do that. And yes, you will feel more compatibility with them. But based on your personal signature in your chart, like I'm not just a Capricorn, I have Moon in Aquarius. I like crazy people. You know, I like people that are a little bit off the grid. They're fun.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you start combining all these things in a chart and you start seeing a whole individualized picture. Like you and I are both Capricorns, but we're going to be different kinds of Capricorns from each other. We're not going to be exactly the same. So we get these signatures and then we can see where that goes. And, you know, like with my chart, I have married twice now a sign that's considered to be very incompatible with mine.
Mm-hmm.
And do I think that was easy? No, I don't think it was as easy. But I also think that I learned hard. And I learned from somebody that gives me a little bit of a hard time about things.
Mm-hmm.
And if we were real compatible, you might not. You know, so it worked for me.
Okay.
And I think everybody we get what we need in life,
mm-hmm.
you know, which helps us to evolve and change.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's good information and it's true about the compatibility, but it's not what everybody needs.
Yeah, so it's not set in stone.
It's not set in stone.
Okay.
No.
So if an earth sign were to be dating a fire sign, that's not necessarily, it might not be the
what
best.
We say is compatible.
Yeah,
right.
But it could still, you know,
be a lot of fun.
Okay.
Fun and interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're all thinking the same, how boring that would be.
Right.
So we have to have these changes.
Okay. Yeah. And another thing I wanted to ask you was, how long did it take for you to, I don't know if master is the right word, but master this practice? Or is it something that you're always studying, you're always learning from?
I'm always studying it. I don't know that I've ever mastered it. And
Okay.
I started my first class in 1975.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things I say about astrology is that I never get bored.
Mm-hmm.
There's always something more to learn, something new to see. It's like the peeling of the onion when we're looking at ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other thing I think astrology is so powerful for, is that it learns you to accept who you are. And instead of, railing against, oh, my life went this way or my life went that way and I don't like this, we just go, wow, that's the way I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to be the best at what I am, but that's who I am.
Okay.
And I can't be somebody else.
Yeah. So what first drew you to astrology?
Actually, I wasn't drawn to astrology at all. I was drawn to the concept of reincarnation.
Okay.
And the people I met at the time, when I was questioning that and wanted to research that, because I was curious about it, happened to be astrologers. So I ended up taking a class in astrology because I wanted to learn more about reincarnation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting in class, my first class, and this young man came over to me and started looking at my chart, and he started telling me things that I didn't think anybody knew about me because I'm kind of a private person.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so shocked and so amazed by it that's when I went, I've got to study this and find out what this is all about.
Okay. Yeah. So not something that you necessarily went out seeking. It kind of found you.
It found me.
Okay. Yeah. And so do you feel like as an astrologer, you're more open to different realms? Because I know this is very different from, say, if someone, were a medium or something like that. But do you feel like you're more open to?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think I'm open to just about everything.
Okay. And
somebody said the aliens landed. I go, really?
Yeah.
Where? How?
Right. Like, let's figure this out.
I wouldn't just say, oh, that's nonsense,
Mm-hmm.
out of hand. I would always be open to that.
Yeah. So do you think that it has changed your perception of the world as well then?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I like looking at politics and
Mm-hmm.
the U.S. chart and, our president. I think that's fascinating, to see what's going on, and it gives me a broader understanding of what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very curious about why we go through things.
Yeah.
So I'm always looking into that.
What would you say to someone who is skeptical of astrology or who might find it superstitious or anything like that?
I would say they don't know what they're talking about. My whole thing about astrology is I'm not out to prove it to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
That was my journey to find out for myself. So I don't try to prove astrology. I usually say to people, then sit down with an astrologer and have an experience with it before you make up your mind and know what you're really talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I'm probably just going to say, fine, believe what you want.
Yeah.
That's fine with me.
Yeah. And have you found that people in your everyday life, do you have friends and family members who kind of come to you and with questions like, hey, I wonder why this is kind of going on? Or,
oh, yeah. All the time.
Yeah. And is that something that you welcome then, or?
Not always, no.
Yeah.
No, I'm not, I have a life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I'm pretty, if it's a friend or a family member, I'm pretty open to looking at it
Mm-hmm.
right away for them because it means something to them.
Yeah.
And I care about them, so I would do that. But having a lot of people call me and ask me about it, no.
I can imagine that would get old
Yeah.
very, very quickly. So yeah. And then I found on the American Federation of Astrologers, when they were kind of explaining what they were about and everything, and how they were talking about the fact versus fiction and whatnot. So they had made some interesting points, and they had said interest in astrology has persisted throughout the centuries, occasionally falling out of favor, but always rebounding. Today, with practitioners in nearly every country, astrology is more popular than ever. So do you find that true?
Yes.
Yeah.
Back in the 70s, when I got into astrology, I had a lot of people trying to save my soul. Now I could bring up astrology and people aren't as willing to try to save my soul. They don't even think that way.
Mm-hmm.
So there has been a change in the perception of astrology.
Okay.
Over time.
Yeah. So something that people aren't as scared of, would you say that?
Yeah, I think people are very fearful of astrology or even a medium or a psychic.
Mm-hmm.
They're afraid that you're going to tell them something they don't want to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't think we do that. I think we are, have I on occasion said something like that? Probably. But I think we're pretty tuned into our clients and are more about helping them, not preaching at them or telling them this or that. And that is etched in stone and they can't do anything about it.
Yeah, for sure. And they had also, the AFA had also said, so the ancient civilizations are gone, but their gift of astrology survives. If it didn't work, it would have long ago taken its place alongside them in the footnotes of history.
I think that's very true.
I mean, there must be a reason,
reason. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And some people love it, some people don't.
Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't ever leave it alone, even when I got discouraged with my own ability to translate it, because it takes years to learn how to translate it.
Okay.
But even when I got discouraged, I always came back to it. It was so interesting. I go, I have to go look.
Mm-hmm.
So I would go back and do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so anyone out there who, might be skeptical or anything, I obviously, that's something that I'm open to, and that's a big reason why I wanted to sit down today. So like Carole had said, make sure you do your own research and that you actually know what you're talking about. Don't knock it before you try it, kind of thing. So I really appreciate you sitting down with me and doing this, and it was great talking with you. And yeah, so thanks again.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it. You guys can tune into my other episodes available on iTunes, Stitcher, and the CLNS Media Network. And I will talk to you guys again next week.